We have a lot of people in the room, or most everyone. I might do something additional. We might do something extra, but for right now, I'm just planning on that we're going to use the materials that I have in the kit so that everyone has the same stuff at home and at school. So the first thing is the sketchbook you see is this blue sketchbook, this mixed media pad. So it's drawing paper, but it's really good for charcoal and ink and anything else that you want to use on it. It's pretty decent for watercolor too, so if you want to do things on it that are besides what we do in drawing class, if you want to add in other stuff on your own, it's pretty good for a lot of different materials. All right, the first thing would be the drawing pencils, and you guys might be familiar with these, perhaps. So drawing pencils come in a range of different hardnesses and softnesses of lead. And so they range. There's like an order that they go in. So you guys have there's 5 in the kit, starting with. Let me see if I can get that in the camera. Starting with this is the HB pencil. So that's the hardest lead. So it's not very soft, and it makes a very light mark. And then it ranges up to, the next one is a B pencil. This one is probably the closest to like a number 2 pencil. So it's a little bit smudgier, a little bit more darker of a mark, but still not the most smudgy. And then it goes 2B, and then 4B.
So the darker the pencil, the more it smudges?
Yep, exactly. And then the 6B. That's the highest one in the range. So you'll see, I'm not going to do all of them, but I'll do the 6B. And you can see that you can smudge it pretty easily. And if you go, I was bearing down kind of hard, which means that the marks will stay exactly where you put them. But if you go a little bit softer and you don't apply so much pressure with the pencil, you should be able to smudge that a little bit more evenly. And there's another tool in the kit, which is a blending stump. You guys may have used these before. So it's basically just a rolled up tube of paper, compacted paper, and then sort of sharpened to a point at both ends, and you can see that it will smudge that pencil even more. And you can actually use it. You can use it like a drawing tool, especially in a place where once you kind of load up the end of it with some carbon from the pencil, you can actually use it like a drawing tool, and it gives you kind of a nice mid-tone mark that is not quite as intense as the pencils. All right, let's go back to the pencils for a second. So now I'm going to switch. This is that HB pencil, so I'm going to do this one by comparison. It might be a little bit hard to see on the screen, but when you're using it, and you can tell both by the feel and by the noise of it, that when you bear down really hard, you can get a dark mark, but it's not going to be as smudgy. So it gives you a much lighter mark than the 6B. A lot of it's going to be based on feel. You know, when you guys get your pencils today, those of you in the room, you'll be able to tell. So the HB, this would be like a good one for like an architect or maybe an industrial designer to use, because the marks are very precise. The lead is not very breakable. It's pretty dense. And then the 6B, maybe more towards the fine artist, like someone who's doing a lot of like value studies and doing a lot of shading, texture, or if you just prefer that drawing style. So the pencils, it gives you a range of different softnesses and hardnesses to work with. All right, then you've got the charcoal pencil. So charcoal is going to be really, really dark, really smudgy. The upside of these pencils is that you can get a super dense mark. As you can see, it's way darker than the other pencils. It's not going to leave that silver kind of sheen the way pencils do. Sometimes pencils, after the buildup, you get a lot of buildup. It looks kind of like a silver or gray. The charcoal pencil is going to give you like a really, really flat, dark mark and very smudgy. Right? The downside of these is that it gets very smudgy and not so precise. It's not really something you want to do for precision, but more like, think about like dry painting. You're sort of painting, you're making like large marks, like large smudgy marks, but you're using a dry material. The other thing about these is that they do not sharpen easily. They're very brittle and they can break, so the best thing to do is to actually sharpen them with a blade, like an X-Acto blade or a craft knife, and just be really careful about not breaking them. And then I think the last two things in the kit are the Sharpies. So these would be the thin line Sharpie, and then I have a thick Sharpie as well. I'm sure you guys have used Sharpies before. The nice thing about the thin line and the thick line Sharpie, both of them, is that not only can you use them to outline things very precisely and darkly, but you can use them to create value and texture with one consistent mark and using a couple techniques such as stippling, hatching, or cross hatching. It just gives like a very different look, sort of like more cartoon, more graphic design. The thick Sharpie is really good for emphasizing like really dark areas, or sometimes outlining shapes that you want to outline with a very heavy line. So all depends on how you use it. Probably honestly won't use the thick Sharpie too much, but the thin Sharpie we'll use quite a bit for line drawing and to do some texture and some shading using some of those techniques that I just really, really briefly went over just a minute ago. So, all right, I'm going to stop the demo, or I'm going to stop the video rather, and I'll post this video